This podcast episode is like none other. We are about to turn 5 years old. And I mean, not we as Aaron and I are turning 5 years old, but the company, BitBranding, is turning 5 years old. So we sort of have a few questions for each other about our successes or failures, things that, I don't know, maybe keeps us up at night. And we try and dive deep into what has made us successful and where we are today and what we think it's going to take for the next 5 years to have another podcast episode just like this one, and look back into. There's a lot of different ideas and concepts and things that we talk about in this podcast. So if you're a business, whether you have hit 5 years or 10 or 15 or 20 or 30, it doesn't matter. This has a lot of good information that will sure help you have a very successful business. Check it out.
This is the Marketing Natives, providing actionable ways to grow, improve, and succeed in your business. And now, your hosts, Christian and Aaron.
Hey y'all, so this is going to be a fun episode. I don't know what the conversation is going to be. I have some questions actually for Christian, but this is more so celebrating 5 years in business for us, and then also probably some good tips and nuggets and pieces of advice to help you get to 5 years, or if you're already there, just also some tips and advice that you can use to grow your business and not probably make the same mistakes as us, or catapult or kind of use ours as a segue to take your growth to another level. And you probably find out a little bit more about us, but this should be a fun episode, like I said, regardless. So
That sounded like an intro.
Huh?
That sounded like the intro.
No, because you're going to intro the podcast episode. I just wanted to give the groundwork. You're going to tell them what we're going to talk about, because for those who do not know, we do the intro afterwards. So Christian's probably going to say, we talk about this, this, and this. And I want to give some context to say, this is why we're doing the episode, or this is what the episode's about. And then halfway through this, be on the lookout for either me or Christian to tell you guys about a contest. So that's going to come out a little bit later, about halfway through the episode, on how you guys can get some really cool stuff for our contest.
I was going to say that in the intro too. But
Were you?
I guess I'm not going to.
You can tell them that too. Or Jack can cut that part of it out. So I had a couple of questions, but this is just, again, natural conversation. I just wanted to prompt it, so I came up with some of them. We don't probably not have to read all of them.
Mm-hmm. That was like a lot.
I
have 0 questions prepared for you, so
that's fine. This is just
actually I have one.
Okay, go ahead. Go first.
What's the purchase of $100 or less?
Yeah. It was Audible. Yeah, easily.
Audible?
Yeah, easily. Oh, speaking of, it's kind of a tangent, but I'm reading I sent you the podcast by, and it's now called like Business Made Simple, or it used to be StoryBrand, where they interviewed Matthew McConaughey for Green Lights. It's his new book, as of at least right now, January 2021. But I'm going through Green Lights. It is probably like, I can't put it number 1, but probably like 1.5 best books I've ever read.
Well, you're reading Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey?
Yes. It is phenomenal.
Interesting.
Phenomenal.
Isn't it just like a bunch of different stories?
Yeah, it's a memoir. It's more than a memoir. It's like, I don't know.
Like
it's
life lessons from him. And stuff,
life lessons, business, everything. It's
failures, successes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's super interesting and also very, I think, applicable to our 5-year stuff. But what he did, which was smart, and actually made me think to start doing that too, is just, and we've kind of done it, is just journaling every single day. I think for 35 years he journaled, and that's the complication, or the amount of like what made this a book, I guess. Mm-hmm. And he reads it, which is just really nice, good to listen to.
Yeah. So he's been on a lot of different podcasts and shows recently promoting his book. And what was the podcast that you sent me?
That was the StoryBrand podcast, or Business Made Simple one.
Was that the one?
Yeah.
I thought it was a different one.
Donald Miller.
But yeah, I listened to his, and yeah, it was very, very interesting. Was it not? I don't think it was that one that I listened to. It was a different one.
No, I've sent you several, so you probably got confused. But yeah, it's definitely him.
Well, I feel like I was listening to a different podcast, and then I saw that Matthew McConaughey was interviewed there, and I think I listened to that one.
Oh, okay.
Because in my mind, I can't hear Donald Miller asking him questions.
Yeah, okay.
It was someone else. That's weird.
He didn't ask. I don't think he asked the questions. Well, I don't know. I think he may have brought somebody else for it. Either way. So he talked a lot about lessons. He talked a lot about his life and what he called like bad things turning into good things, which is like a green light. It's amazing. It's probably like I said, it's up there, but it's also emotional roller coaster too. He goes deep into, and he's from Texas, so shout out to all the Texas people,
Welcome.
which is even cooler. But yeah, it's amazing. So if any book you read this year, I would highly suggest that one. There's a lot of things to pull out from it. So I hear for a Christian, just in general, what do you feel like is the biggest lesson that you personally, you Christian, have learned in the last 5 years? Could be personal, could be for the business. I'm just thinking like, what has the business taught you in the last 5 years?
I mean, I think what comes to mind immediately just jumped in my head. I was trying to think of something different, but I would say as of recently in the past 2 years, like time blocking our calendars.
Mm-hmm.
I think like from the get go, that was something that people told us to do, and we were just so new. We didn't have a lot to do, and it just seemed counterintuitive or more work
Yeah.
to time block. But now with 30 different things going on, plus obviously personal life and all that, like now I have two calendars. I have a work calendar and a personal calendar.
Yeah.
I share both calendars with my fiance.
Nice. That's new as of recently.
That's recently. And I think, I mean, it helps me, stay focused and organized on what's coming up next. Because I think that my stress levels and anxiety would be through the roof if I would wake up every morning and not have any idea what my day would look like. Just get to work and then try to figure out, okay, what's the most pressing thing right now? That's scary, just saying it out loud. So
Right.
I think, biggest lesson is either managing time blocking, using calendars. I think I've told you the story in the past where I think I was in 10th grade back in Puerto Rico,
Mm-hmm.
and one of our teachers, it was a history teacher I don't know, and out of the blue, she was just one day she decided to give us a time management lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Like we didn't do any history that day. We just did a time management lesson. She gave us this piece of paper that had, I don't know, 7 a.m. And it would break out 7 a.m., 7:30, 8, 8:30, all the way up to like 6 or
Dang.
7 p.m. Right, and it was very simple, just a time and then just a line
Mm-hmm.
through a sheet of paper. And she was like, just write down, what you do on a day, so you can time block and all this.
Right.
And at the time I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever. Like, wake up, go to school, eat. And I was like, this is so dumb. Like
Right.
back then I was like, this is so dumb. But now, I mean, looking back at it, it's like, okay, she was like trying to put
Create
those
a habit.
ideas, and create habits and put those ideas at least, in our brains that like, you'll need to do this eventually,
Mm-hmm.
And I think more so than ever, like, I use that every day.
So that's a good point. Like something I was thinking about is like, how do you cope with, because like as a business owner, there's like, and even being in business for this long, there's so many changes. So I think there's regular business owners, and then there's like marketing business owners, because regular business owners have changes in their industry as far as like what's going on in the baking industry or finance or whatever, or they're a doctor, which is very slow, meaning like, there may be 10 updates in the year. For us, there could be 10 updates in a day. So how do you like cope with the stresses or changes of a constantly moving business, not only for us? So I feel like there's a wheel, if you're able to see this video, like a wheel going on in your left hand, and you're trying to control the business side. And then you have all the changes that you have to keep up with for everything else that allows you to work with the clients is on the right hand side. So it's like two constant moving wheels that need to stay in sync the whole time.
I mean, I think you agree with this, and we've talked about this since the beginning of our company. And I think it goes back to like education or continuing education.
Mhm.
And like from the very beginning of our business, we decided that we were going to spend some time educating ourselves and like never stop learning. And because, our industry required us to do that. Right. But I think that also has sort of bled into other aspects of the business too. It's not just us trying to educate ourselves in social media, websites, branding, and all this stuff. It's also educating ourselves in how to run our business,
Mhm.
how to be a better leader,
Right.
how to be a better husband, how to be a better father. Like, and I think it started there, but it's sort of grown into more of a education, personal development. Um, it's what really drives us to success. I was listening to a podcast by Hal Elrod where he was reading a book or or going through a course from Jim Rohn, and that was one of the things that really stuck out to him was that your success cannot exceed your personal development time or something like that.
Yeah.
So like you have to be constantly developing yourself, either knowledge, education, like whatever it may be, in order to have the success that you want. You can't say that you want to be super successful, but then don't put in the work.
Right. Your habits on the line. Yeah, it's the same thing as I don't know who said it, so if you did say it, let me know. But there's basically like a quote out there. It's like like where you're at today is the exact sum of things that you were doing 90 days ago. Meaning like if you're 10 pounds overweight, well, 90 days ago, you were probably not eating right. If you're in a fight with your wife or fiance constantly, well, 90 days ago, there was probably a little blip on the radar that you ignored and then just pushed down the road. If your business isn't going well right now, 90 days ago, something. So it's like you're a sum of your experiences to this point, which is kind of defeating for that purpose if things aren't going well, but also super exciting because it's like today could be the next in 90 days could be the complete change. So if it's like your business isn't going well right now, whatever, in 90 days, you could literally flip it on its head. Like I know people who went from like zero, like, oh dang, nothing's happening, like $5,000 or $10,000 a month or 5,000 per month to, wow, we made 6 figures in 1 month. And that was over 90 days. Like they were able to just turn that around and make it possible. So I think that kind of goes to what you're saying is you got to constantly be developing yourself because if you don't, there's going to be a lagging like factor with that.
Yeah, and I think if you don't keep up with any of that stuff, or even just personal development, you'll end up burnt out and stressed and with anxiety, etc. And even I just got this for Christmas, but I thought it was like the coolest thing ever.
What is it?
It's called the Intellectual Devotional. So like it goes over like just 7 topics of knowledge, like history, art, and like you just want every day you just read about, I don't know, Ernest Hemingway. And then the next day you'll read about the mind body problem. And then the next day you'll read about the Mona Lisa. So it's just like a kind of, it says revive your mind, complete your education, and roam confidently with the culture class. So it's like random, like think of it as like random Wikipedia articles, I guess, of interesting things that you should have some knowledge about.
Yeah.
I thought that was super interesting. And it goes back to what we had agreed upon when we started our business, right? Like constantly be educating yourself, constantly be learning. And that's how we move forward with our business. So I think that's very important.
You probably already, like, I think this is just again, it kind of transcends, like I said, I had things to just kind of point out, but I think that transcends like attribution of success, which is from the beginning, personal development, like really, I mean, we block out time and tell our employees, or coworkers, however you want to describe it, like, hey, you have education, like spend at least 10 hours or so this quarter working on things. Now we obviously, I think, do a lot more than that, but at least 10 hours and like an hour per week that we block out and we pay for and just say, learn, just do it and learn. Now, I think we need to get better at, something that I'm thinking of is just like making sure that everything else doesn't just move that, because it's easy to move the education, which actually falter. It makes a problem later. But the biggest success we could have is that we are constantly learning. Like if nothing else, I guess if people went to BitBranding, they would say, okay, you guys are always either teaching other people or you're learning yourself. So we're just constantly in a succession of like moving forward as far as education, which I think attributes to a lot of our success. But that being said, do you feel like there's something else that attributes to our success outside of that? I'm just,
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think another thing that comes to mind is just our drive and determination and being relentless on, not failing. And I think, did you say that the other day?
what? Oh yeah, so we can't fail.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were talking to our coaches about that. Yeah, it's actually a podcast that Hal Elrod. You guys should check him out. It's the Achieve Your Goals podcast. It's amazing. But he said like you can only learn, grow, and I can't think of the third one, but basically you can't fail. So you either learn from your quote unquote failure, grow from it, or if you actually you know, quote unquote fail from it, there's something else. Like it builds upon or adds something else to it, which is kind of what Matthew McConaughey is saying. Like he gave a story like very early on the book. It was like almost had me in tears. It was so sad. But he basically talks about his mom and dad and their relationship. It was actually a really good, loving relationship. But he told stories about like how they showed love, which was not really conventional. Let's just say that. So it was kind of scary to see them. Like mom had a knife in her hand, dad was like yelling at her. They're kind of like dodging each other's knives, and then like they just break down and like make love in the kitchen. It's just like with the kids, everybody kind of ran out or whatever. But he goes into so much more detail to tell the story. But at the end of that, he was like green light because he's like, it's a red light. It's my parents are having a domestic problem. They, you know, look from the outside, look like they're about to get in a huge fight and hurt each other, go to the ER, kill somebody, whatever. But what really happens is that brought them closer together and to the most, you know, highest level of like intimacy. So he's just talking about the green light thing. So for us, or even failure, it's like there's only growth or learning or whatever else he was talking about. But the point is that like all those failures actually turn into something positive. He's so the like I said, the book is amazing. Keep going back to it, but it's just
So you're saying like it's not necessarily that we can't fail, is that like every failure has a positive outcome?
yeah, and he talks about it in our lives too. So I mean, everything, even close to the business or not close to the business. For example, I mean, we were in business for 5 years, but like there probably will be more story about this like as we progress. But like early on, I would have never reached out to Christian if I wouldn't have gotten in a car accident like way back when that basically pushed me to not take a more successful job and get paid a lot more. I probably wouldn't have thought about like, I want to get the heck out of this job. I want to do something different. I want to do something fun. If it wasn't for that car accident, which absolutely sucked, totaled my car, lost thousands of dollars, didn't have a way to go to work. Like it was just really, really bad and lost a huge, you know, basically amount of money because I couldn't take a really nice job
Mm-hmm.
and forced me to take a lower paying job and forced me to say, dang, this is not what I want to do, which is would have happened maybe 5 years after that. But it just basically forced me to do something and try new things. And then because I tried new things, then it's like, oh, I had some success here. And then let's reach out to Christian. Let's ask him if he can help me like do this stuff. And then ultimately became BitBranding. So a car accident, which is the red light, became an absolute huge freaking green light. And while we're having this podcast.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I want to thank you for consuming our content. That really means a lot to us. This year, we actually turned 5 years old, and that's a big deal for us. So in celebration of our 5-year anniversary, we are giving away over $10,000 worth of freebies and our swipe file of different ads, landing pages, graphics that we've created over the years. The content is free to enter. We'll be drawing a name on February 11th. You can find out more information by going to contest.bitbranding.co for more information on how your business can benefit from all these great deals. Okay, now back to your regularly scheduled content. So we talked about education. We talked about not failing. I mean, is there something else that you think that attributes our success?
I I feel like, I mean, whenever you hear about people like, I don't really run into this because like in startup community or like Facebook groups or anything like that I see, like they're always constantly asking like, hey, let me look for a co-founder. Let me look for somebody to like be the yin and yang person for me. And I feel like I don't resonate or I'm not necessarily empathetic or understand that situation because we kind of found each other from the beginning. Because that's the number one reason that people fail in business is either they try to go solo, which there are successful solo business owners for sure. It's just a lot less likely. And then when you do have a business partnership, like making sure that it sustains like a good relationship and goes through the ups and downs is also super hard. So I think the fact that we kind of complement each other allows our business to move forward. Now, we may butt heads about certain things, but we have a creative aspect, we have a marketing and sales aspect. So when we work together like that, I think it makes us even more successful versus, okay, we just have like, you're really good at sales and marketing, and I'm really good at sales and marketing. And then like, we're missing this whole component over here, which is like the creative side of our business. Like, super boring. We have some sales, but we can't grow because we don't have this area over here. Or we're both just like, let's make the most amazing thing, coolest thing ever, but nobody wants to buy it. Like,
Mhm.
so I think that would be like if we were to put three prongs, or like if you're looking at like a bicycle spoke, one of the spokes is definitely like you and I. Well, the other one is like the failures, and then education is how I would like continue it.
Yeah, makes sense.
How I guess what would be the best way for like if somebody was looking at us, like how other businesses could mimic our successes and learn from our failures. So that being said, like what would you say is, and I know we just talked about there's no such thing as like a failure, you can't fail, but like what's something that you would be like, okay, it's 5 years ago today and I know everything now. What would we not do because it just took too much time, or it wasn't a good lesson, or like, or maybe we could have had a different lesson? Like what would you eliminate, or what would you say was quote unquote a failure? Again, I don't want to necessarily use that, but lack of better term to use.
Um, hmm. I mean, I guess again, things that are just jumping in my head right now is early on not documenting well enough, or I
That's
guess
true.
not knowing how to document. Although, when I guess we've talked about this before, either in our podcast or a different video, where you don't have to know necessarily how to document it,
Right.
but just do something. And I feel like we did some stuff.
Yeah.
Um, it's just not very organized, I guess. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff in our drive
Yeah.
that it's like really, really old that, yeah, it may not have, I don't know, the organization, or maybe we didn't um, write down the right things,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to like our process
Yep.
or how we do different things. I think those are definitely missing from our early years in our business.
Hmm.
And then I think another one would be, I don't know, because I'm thinking of like the mentor or
Hmm.
coaches, but I feel like we had someone.
There's always a person. So like very early, we started out with like Tim Valentine, and then um, Ben Reed, and then there was like maybe a little bit of a gap.
Your friend from Interstate,
Yeah, Kurt Ruby.
Kurt Ruby.
And then we had like maybe a little gap of like 6 to 8 months, maybe a year or something, and then we have our coaches now.
Yeah.
So you're right. I don't think we were intentional about it. We were just like, this seems logical, so we just did it. But yeah, I think that's probably something like we didn't have somebody. I mean, we called and asked questions about it, but it wasn't like an intentional like. So I think yeah, that's a good point, or at least for me, like to kind of piggyback off what you're saying is like setting intentional coaching meetings um, from the very beginning, or like maybe even after the first year or something, like a little bit more stream, like uh, what is the right word? The Were you actually like not necessarily structured, but like I guess you could say structured, where it's like we're actually sitting down with them talking about specific stuff versus just like, hey, we have these things, let's just talk to them.
Yeah. And I think something that also comes to mind is back then, I feel like we didn't know what type of coach or mentor we were looking for.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we had this idea that a mentor or coach, they were just going to feed us um, the answers, or tell us how to run our business.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like we were okay with that because we were like, oh, we've never done a marketing agency. Like we need someone who's worked in a marketing agency to tell us how to do these things.
Yeah.
And that's just like completely incorrect.
Yeah.
Right. Like the mentor or coach is there to just pick out the answers that you already have in your brain.
Yeah. You already know that. It's yeah, we thought we needed a consultant. We really needed a coach, and we mixed the two of them, or at least I did.
Yeah.
To go back to, again, this was like a Green Lights podcast, but he talks about, so Matthew McConaughey talks about how he got the role for Dazed and Confused. Have you seen that?
Um, Yeah, I think he talked about it in one of the podcasts.
Yeah. You should definitely go watch Dazed and Confused if you haven't. It's a classic. But
Mhm.
he talks about how he got the role, but then later he's like, well, now that I've gotten this role, I should go be more sophisticated. I'm going to go take acting classes. And he went to go take acting classes, and then it just caused like analysis paralysis because he was like, okay, I got to do this, and then got to do this, and got to do this. And he could never get into the role. And so he was like, I got to unlearn this stuff because I was good at what I was doing before. So it's kind of like he thought he needed a coach or a consultant, but really he just needed somebody to kind of push him in the right direction. So I think that's kind of pretty much for every area of life, which has kind of been helpful for us too, is that, yeah, they just take the ideas from your head that you already have and just ask the right questions, which I think you could sum up pretty much the success of anything is just asking the right questions, like going to Mars or anything like that. Like, ask the right question, not how to get to Mars. It's like, who's going to Mars?
Mm.
Like, I don't know, but I'm just thinking like everything can be solved with asking the right questions.
Yeah. And yeah, I think, yeah, like I said early on, I felt like they were supposed to tell us this is how you run your books, or this is how you should organize your Google Drive, or this is how you should do X, Y, and Z. And I feel like that's what we're looking for versus like just guiding us into, okay, maybe this is a resource that you can use to figure out what different way you can organize your, your Google Drive. Right. So like at the end of the day, like are the ones who need to be making the decisions, not some external third party source.
Yeah. Yeah. I was looking at something on LinkedIn and he said like, if you're a business owner or a C-level executive or whatever else, it's like your number one skill that you need to learn is like decision making, because business owners, their job is to make decisions, and the quicker you can make them, typically the more successful you'll be. So it's like quick decisions, and you learn from those decisions. But it's like that's basically your job. Picking the stuff for the office, who to hire, who to fire, how to use the marketing, like it's all decisions. Um, that being said, like I think that's can be kind of a harder thing to do. But I would put here, and I was just curious for myself and probably for other people too, because they get caught in the rat race of like, all right, once I get to this level of my business, I'm good. When I get to this level of my business, I'm good, or like whatever else, without being necessarily satisfied, because there isn't anything that's like tangible outside of like societal norms to where your business should be. So the question is, what would you say is like the most joyful moment for you? It could be like joyful moments or joyful moment in the last 5 years.
I mean, I think I think of moments, and I say moments because we have multiple employees. So I think like seeing them just go from, yeah, it's almost like watching a baby grow, like seeing them go from deer in the headlights, I don't know what I'm doing first day, to they're making some decisions by themselves, they're working with the team, they're doing all these things. So like, and then I always go back to like pandemic and like the fact that we didn't fire anyone, we didn't, so like taking care of other people, I think is, to me, I mean, I enjoy that. I enjoy seeing them progress. I enjoy them seeing what they can do, and push the needle on videos or campaigns or the way they communicate. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so that's like a constant joyous approach, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't say, because I was thinking like, oh, when we hired X, Y, and Z, or, but it's also, I think it's the whole process of getting employees. Because for the longest time, it was just you and I doing stuff, and then we had like an employee, but not really, and then we had interns, but not really. But when we started actually getting employees and going through the whole process, like I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couple of quick ones here. What does, we haven't talked about this. We're actually about to meet, ironically, tomorrow for like intensive. So we just got back from Colorado. It was awesome. Shout out to Estes Park. Actually, if you're watching this video, Christian's doing a huge shout out to Estes Park right now.
I am. Yeah.
So super cool area, but we spent a few days there just talking about like our ideas and growth for 2021. But we're meeting again to kind of not redefine, but to define them and get it clear on our vision for this year. Um, so what does success in 5 years, maybe a little bit more, but it's more open ended. So like, what does success look like for you in the next 5 years?
Um, I think more hands off. What's the word?
He's quitting the company.
No, like yeah, just being able to be a little bit more, yeah, hands off on the day to day things. And I think we both agree on like, yeah, focusing on like the bigger ideas and
Hmm.
um ways to grow the business instead of just being more like doing minutia and
Yeah, micro stuff versus macro.
yeah. Um, so I think if in 5 years we're at a point where I don't know, we have some kind of maybe a CEO who's running the company, and we're like
Hmm.
basically just idea machines. And I mean, obviously we will be in the business,
Hmm.
but it's just not as or the same fashion that we're doing it right now.
Yeah.
Um, just looking at that, being on that 10,000 view of the company or companies. I don't know.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just we're the decision makers essentially.
Yeah.
You know. What
Yeah.
about you?
I was gonna say, I think that that's definitely like in 5 years. It's crazy to think that that's definitely possible. I think it's even possible in 3 years, but like 5 years, yeah, absolutely. I want to. I mean, if there's like I can't remember what they are, the 5 sections, but I'm definitely like the first section of like, okay, cool. Like, I've done this for a period of time. I want to move to something else. Like, I've always been interested in like real estate. Well, how can Bit Branding buy real estate for a marketing agency? Well, and that's something we could be thinking about, or something else, other business ventures that are related to what we're doing now, or, how could we have a complete like hire, like we couldn't do it necessarily, but we could have the ideas for like, okay, the newest thing or like the best thing that's going to be going on is like app development. So how could we have a division of Bit Branding that's not the marketing, but is the development? It's just literally building apps. I don't know. Um, I haven't really explored that part of it because I mean we need to be in the day to day. But to me, that would be fun to be part of, like a conglomeration of Bit Branding that has multiple like umbrellas underneath of it. That's has the marketing and it just expands from all the different areas that you could work with people. Who knows? Maybe we even buy the stuff to be a printing company. I don't know, but
Maybe we're
um,
the next Shopify.
there you go. Exactly. I mean, yeah, we would need to hire the right people for it. I don't know. Like, we have the ideas to make it happen, I think, but we probably, like to your point, couldn't be the implementer. So, yeah, it's more so, I guess for me, yeah, if we look at it in 2 or 3 years as like a 10,000 foot view, like 5 years, I would want to be like a 30,000 foot view. So it's just like, here's the pieces of the puzzle and how they kind of work together. And I think that that will be laid out, but I think that's kind of like success to me anyway. Um, what in the 5 years, just more goings for the personal life, what has 5 years in business taught you about your personal life? Whether it's with friends, family.
I mean, I think the theme that comes to mind is communication.
Hmm.
And even thinking, I think in the past year, that has been something that we've talked to our coaches and our employees, coworkers, etc., about is communicating better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it started. I think we maybe with our coaches saying like your problem is communication, you know,
Yeah, that was
and
like a
then
year
like
ago, right?
uh-huh, and then like yeah, just using some of those same things with friends and relationships and
Mm-hmm.
X, Y, and Z. So I think that has been something that I don't think I'm there yet,
Mm-hmm.
but it's definitely top of mind
Right.
every time that I speak or send a text message or I'm on a phone call with someone. Uh, the things that you say and how you say them, and the way you're communicating with this type of personality, with that type of personality,
Mm-hmm.
matters. So I think communication as a whole is something that has affected my personal life
Mm-hmm.
and business as well.
Yeah, there's a book. I think I was like 20. No, not even, maybe 19 or 20. But I have it at the house. I can't remember. But it's a good book. You should get it or steal it from my bookshelf. It's called Say This, Not That. So it just talks about like, all right, you could say all these different things. It pertains to business, but it's also personal life. It's like, hey, why don't you move your car versus, hey, I actually need to get over here. Is there any way you could move your car so I could put mine here? Like, there's just a different approach to like how you could say like, and his whole point is like talking about sales, but he's saying like, "Hey, would you like to buy it today?" versus like, "Are you ready to make this purchase?" Or "Are you ready to change your life?" Like those types of things are just like small changes. Said the exact same thing, but they just change the way that you're doing it. So that's yeah, I think that's a really good way to do it. And yeah, the communication I think is at least my understanding of communication is like, yeah, we're at level 1 right now, and then you don't really ever finish the game. It's just
Correct.
like kind of building.
Yeah. What do you think has been the biggest roadblock that you've have to sort of overcome to be where we're at today?
Um, biggest roadblock. I would say, I mean, for me, it's yeah, it's the I want to be like personally 10 streets down. Let's just say if we're driving a car, like I want to be in the next town over. And I have to realize that to get there effectively, meaning like if we're using the car analogy, I may have a car that's like kind of like popping and like the ignition may not turn over when you get there, but I could get the car there, but it's going to be a lot less of a vehicle or like a good vehicle to get there. And then what I've realized with that roadblock or with that car is that I have to have the right people with the car to help me get there. So, i.e., like you, but also our employees, like, hey, okay, I have to treat them differently um, than what I would want to for myself because I'm a different person. Again, communication, but they're needed to drive the car there. And then I didn't realize this, but it's like, okay, I have a third row here, which is also like Brianna and Aspen. Could be future kid, who knows? But like Brianna and Aspen are a part of this as well, which is okay, how does my decisions at work affect their lives, or how do their lives now affect the business? And that's just the kind of personality I am. I'm like, okay, well, you can't figure this out. Like, we'll find a solution, but to somebody else, it may not be so obvious to say, like, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to sit here because I don't want to go search for a solution. So I think the biggest roadblock to kind of bring that all together, if it makes sense anyway, is that I just got to meet people where they're at. So the roadblock has been myself in the way that I think. And it's not necessarily to change the way that I'm thinking, but to meet people where they're at and just show them how to get in the car. Because I think I'm supposed to be the one that's like pushing the car, but not everybody has found the car yet, or they're not getting in it yet. They're just like waiting at the side of the road for it to be picked up.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Um, this is interesting. A question. I just thought of this like last minute, but I was like, huh. I think this would be a cool question to ask for because I think that the answer is different for everybody in business. And it could also be related to that in life, which is like, who do you think pushed you the hardest to keep pursuing like owning a business or dream like I don't know if it's necessarily quote unquote your dream. I feel like a lot of people who do start a business, it is their dream to go out on their own and to have their own thing. So I put that as what I was thinking was their dream. But like, who pushed you the hardest to keep pursuing business ownership, entrepreneurship, um, just in general?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's a one person or one thing that has been like number one. I feel like it's always been a blend of myself, you, Megan, my parents, um, and I think in different situations or different places within the past 5 years where it's been different people,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't think there's never been like I'm the only one who's keeping me afloat,
Right.
you know? I think there's been times where, yeah, I've been like burnt out, but I don't know, Megan's there for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or, yeah, like I have like way too much work or whatever, and like you're there for me with solutions, or like you're there for me to, you know, just keep that north star of like this is where we need to go, and this is why we're doing these things right now,
Mm-hmm.
and this is why we're not making any money right now, right? At the very beginning, like that was very hard.
Yeah.
So, and then I mean, like I feel like my parents too, like, just making sure that, like in the back of my head, there's always this, you know, and I think of, in the future when I'm a parent, like all I would ever want is my for my kids to succeed, right?
Mm-hmm.
and be successful and not be in a ditch or whatever. Like, so I think it's important for me to sort of, keep this going and keep striving for more, to kind of let my parents know, like, hey, you can relax now.
Right.
It's kind of like I'm good.
Right.
Because like, I mean, for the longest time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Even straight out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I had some ideas, and my parents, I think, were pushing me to do business and marketing, and I was more pushing more like, no, I want to do more of the design stuff. And there was never really like a thing where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a orthopedic surgeon.
Right.
Like, like I was never that kid. So I think having my parents see that I'm successful, I think it's important for me too, and it kind of drives me to keep going.
Right.
As well.
They can see you from the side and like, hey, it's good. Like, obviously, you just got back from your brother's wedding. Shout out to your brother. Congrats.
Congrats.
And Annalise too. But yeah, it's like you just got back to them and they're like, hey, like, it's good. You got like decent clothes on and like, you aren't missing rent or whatever. So it's like, just to know that, I'm taken care of or whatever. Right. But I can tell you right now, because you're not in this position, which is like, as a parent, they're just never going to stop.
Right.
It's like one of those things where you just keep trying, but like they keep pushing the carrot or pulling the carrot a little bit farther. They're like, okay. I mean, so they may be okay in a certain area, but it's just like they'll never stop like worrying or whatever.
Right.
May dampen it, I guess. But it's like right now, it's like, all right, with Aspen, it's like, okay, make sure that you don't run out into traffic. But it could also be like, oh, now you're hanging out with different friends, or now you're driving, or now you're going off to college. Like there's just different levels, I guess.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I feel like for this anyway, for the 5 years, it will be fun to look back at this podcast and just really see like, okay, what did we do well? What did we learn from? And then where were we at? So like, what was our type of thinking? So we were like, oh, education. Like in 5 years from now, we're like, nah, super like cut education out, which I doubt that's the case, but just good to see maybe kind of like an Easter egg of like, we were doing the right things now. We just never knew how much they were going to compound. That's my prediction, I guess, I would say for the next 5 years. We're going to look back at these previous 5 years and say, wow, we actually did a lot of stuff correct. We had the right building blocks. We just were at the iceberg stage. We never really were out of it yet.
Yeah. And I think there's always that component of we don't know what it's like until we get there.
Yeah.
And so that's where there's always going to be new challenges and new things come in. It's like, you think, like you said this a million times, where it's like the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire, right? Like you can't even fathom what a millionaire is, but a millionaire can't even fathom what a billionaire really is, no. And their struggles and their, worries and all this stuff. So yeah, until we get there, that's when we actually realize like, oh, like we need to, have these. So, but I think having the growing pains that we have right now and dealing with them and doing them in a way that, we know that we can be flexible and changing in the future. I think is what helps us stay successful. Is like finding the solutions, but also not being afraid to change those solutions because we're at a different level, right? I think a lot of businesses maybe, have that mentality of like, this is the way that we've been doing it,
right? And
this is the way that we're going to do it, but they don't realize that what worked then is not going to work now. Yeah. So I think that's also a very important mindset to have while we're going through, this whole journey.
Yeah, the status quo is not something that we want to stay at.
Right.
As a fun fact, because you brought up the millionaires and billionaires, I was reading about that the other day again because it's mind-boggling to me. But there's 2,300. Actually, I'll just give you the other one. There's 86 or like 200 plus million millionaires in the world, like millions upon millions of them. Billionaires, there's roughly 2,300. So 2,300 billionaires roughly, and hundreds of millions of millionaires. So it's like they're not even like close at all. And I don't know how that necessarily relates as far as like the 5-year anniversary for our business, but I think that it will be, to your point, related in the sense that the conversations that we have now aren't even like our biggest dreams. Hopefully, if we continue to dream bigger, are not even close to what we fathomed they could be in the next 5 years. So yeah, we can't imagine what's possible. But I'm looking forward to the biggest setback, or what we perceive as the biggest setback, to be like the largest launching pad forward. So, all right. I don't know if you had any final remarks. Those were all my ideas or questions or things that I was thinking of.
No, I don't have anything else.
Nothing else.
Actually, we had a podcast a long time ago.
We did?
Well, it was episode 100.
It was a long time ago. It was 100. That was almost 2 years ago.
And I think who started the question? I was trying to look through the transcripts.
Oh.
But I think the first question that we asked was, are hot dogs sandwiches? So has that changed?
Hot dogs are not sandwiches. That's what I said. What did you say they were?
I don't remember. I can't remember.
I think it's a running joke, but you can ask it now.
I don't think they're sandwiches. No.
Okay, I think we both agreed. So if our theory changes in the next 5 years, we know that we've gotten to a Renaissance philosophical level.
Yeah.
To where our
thinking is definitally changing.
Yeah, exactly. But as of right now, 2 years later, which is crazy. Yeah, it's literally coming up on almost 2 years now. Because this episode is pretty close to like 190 or episode 200. I don't know what episode it will be, but yeah, if that was episode 100, then we're pretty close to 200, which we should do something fun for that. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. We hope you got a lot out of it. Hope you learned a little bit more about Christian and I. Hopefully you learned a little bit more about you in businesses as you're going through this, and how you could relate to this, whether you've been in business for 5 years, whether you've been in business for 20, or it's your first 5 months. I think there's a lot of different things that you could take out of this episode that could help you and your business move forward, but also let you know that, hey, it's possible. And really the biggest benefit factor here is just persistence and doing, 20 to 30% of the things correctly, because we did a lot of things that were not correct. And hopefully you can learn from those as well. So thank you so much. This is not a normal style episode, but if you are a business owner who wants to generate more leads online or more sales online, make sure to go to bitbranding.co, and we have our signature services there that will help you grow your business online. If you've been listening for a while, please make sure to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts, or any type of review depending on where you're listening to this at. And if you're new, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or anything like that, just make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of the content we put out every single week. The Marketing Natives comes out every Monday, and we've been doing that now for that'll be going on almost 5 years this next year, right? 2016, or was that 17? 4. I had to count in my head. Going on almost 4 years. So, and just a fun tidbit, only like 1 to 3% of podcast episodes podcasts ever make it to 100 episodes. We're about to have 200. So, if you subscribe, you know that every Monday you're going to get a new piece of content to help you grow your business. So thanks again for listening. We'll talk to you guys next time.
The Marketing Natives Podcast is a production of BitBranding.